Let's get real for a second. You're here because something shifted. Maybe he pulled away. Maybe the texts got fewer. Maybe you started feeling like the only one trying. And deep down, there's this voice asking, how do I get him back without losing myself trying? Good news, you don't have to chase to re-attract someone. In fact, chasing is the fastest way to lose attraction. So, let's flip the script. 1. Shift your focus from him to you. Stop making him the center of your emotional universe. Think about it. When you were at your most attractive, were you obsessed with anyone? Probably not. You were in your flow, confident, doing your thing. That's the version of you he was originally drawn to. So bring her back, not for him, but for you. Because your energy becomes magnetic the moment you remember your worth. 2. Upgrade your lifestyle and environment. Start saying yes to more invitations. Hit that dance class. Start that side hustle. Decorate your space like a queen. Live so richly that someone would be lucky to be let into your world. When your life looks like a story worth being part of, people pay attention, and he'll notice, even if you don't say a word. 3. Re-establish emotional mystery. Let me be clear, emotional mystery is not playing games. It's allowing curiosity to live again. Maybe he got used to you being available, always replying instantly, always saying yes. Now, let there be silence sometimes. Let him wonder what you're up to. We're not trying to punish, we're trying to reset. Mystery invites pursuit. 4. Use strategic communication. You don't have to ghost him, but when you do reach out, make it quality. Send a playful message, share something cool you're doing, ask for an opinion, then disappear for a bit. Let your communication remind him of the spark, not of neediness. Make him feel you without having to see you all the time. 5. Set boundaries that command respect. Here's the truth. People re-attract when they stop tolerating crumbs. If he reaches out only at midnight, say no. If he wants your time but not your heart, step back. You don't re-attract by bending. You do it by standing tall. Nothing is more attractive than someone who won't settle for less than they deserve. So, how do you re-attract him without chasing? By becoming a woman he has to chase. You don't knock on doors begging to be let back in. You build a life so beautiful, they start knocking on yours. Thank you. When you're trying to re-attract someone, the first instinct is often to zero in on them, what they're doing, thinking, feeling, whether they miss you, whether they're seeing someone else. Your mind becomes a constant reel of him, and everything you do starts to orbit around the question, how do I get him back? But here's the irony, that energy, that fixation, is exactly what repels the very connection you're trying to rebuild. Attraction was never born in a place of need. It was born when you were fully in your power, doing your thing, unaware or unconcerned about who was watching. That's where we need to get back to. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending he didn't matter. It means redirecting your emotional investment. Instead of pouring all your time, attention and energy into figuring him out, start figuring you out again. When did you last feel powerful? When did you feel magnetic, alive, and full of confidence? That version of you still exists. She's just been buried under layers of overthinking, self-doubt, and heartbreak. And the way to bring her back isn't by texting him at midnight or watching his every story. It's by shifting the spotlight from him back to you. Let's get real. You weren't always like this. There was a time when your world wasn't wrapped around his validation. You had things going for you. Maybe it was your work, your friendships, your fitness, your hobbies, or just your natural energy that lit up rooms. That's the energy he first noticed. That effortless sense of self. The version of you who smiled, not because someone texted back, but because she was genuinely loving her life. That's the version of you that re-attracts, not the one who chases, doubts, or waits by the phone. And the only way to get back to her is to stop making him the lead character in your story. Start waking up and asking, what do I need today? Not does he miss me, but what would make me feel good right now? That shift is subtle but powerful. When your focus is external, your confidence lives and dies by his responses. But when your focus turns inward, your confidence becomes unshakable. You're no longer measuring your worth by his behavior. You're measuring it by how deeply you're honoring your own needs. Go deeper into the parts of yourself you've neglected. Reconnect with the parts that made you radiant in the first place. What are your passions? What excites you? What's that project you've been putting off? Who are the people who light you up? Dive into your own world so completely that you begin to feel full again, not from someone else's presence, but from your own. And that fullness, that glow, is what becomes irresistible. Because here's what no one tells you. Men are deeply attracted to women who are grounded in themselves. When you stop chasing and start choosing yourself, it sends a message that is subtle but undeniable. It says, I don't need you to complete me. I'm already whole. And that's when the dynamic shifts. That's when he starts wondering what you're up to, why you're glowing differently, why your energy feels more mysterious and alive again. He senses the shift, even if he can't articulate it. And suddenly, the one who was drifting starts leaning in again, not because you ran after him, but because you turned your light back on. People forget how magnetic inner peace and self-focus can be. When your life becomes less about proving your worth to someone, and more about living your worth, everything starts to change. You start moving differently, talking differently. Even your silence carries weight. Because you're no longer trying to force an outcome. You're simply being someone worth choosing. And that version of you is powerful. She's calm, she's vibrant, and she's not waiting. She's living. So no, the answer to re-attracting him isn't in crafting the perfect message, showing up at the right place, or posting the right story. It's in the quiet but powerful shift of energy. The moment you stop looking outward and start nourishing the very thing that made you unforgettable in the first place. You. The woman who doesn't chase, the woman who chooses herself first. When someone pulls away or the connection fades, it's easy to fall into this trap of waiting for a message, a sign, a moment where things magically go back to how they were. But that waiting room is the loneliest place to be. It drains your energy and freezes your progress. The most powerful thing you can do in that moment isn't to wait or wonder what he's doing. It's to redirect that emotional energy into building a life that feels exciting, rich and beautiful, with or without him in it. Upgrading your lifestyle and environment isn't about pretending to be happy for social media or putting on a show to make him notice. It's about creating a reality where you wake up and actually feel good about your world, because it's full, because it's vibrant, because it reflects who you are and who you're becoming. Think about how often we shape our days around people who are no longer present. You might be sitting in the same room, with the same routines, listening to the same music that reminds you of him. And whether you realize it or not, your space starts to reflect your emotional state. Clutter, stagnation, the same old patterns. It's like your physical world is frozen in a version of you that existed when things were still good. But now, it's time to shake that energy up. Start small, move the furniture, paint the walls, burn a new candle, create an environment that represents where you're going, not where you've been. Your space isn't just a background to your life. It actively shapes how you feel. And when you start creating an environment that feels new and energizing, you naturally start stepping into a new version of yourself. Now let's go beyond your physical space. Your lifestyle, your habits, your choices, the way you move through your day, speaks volumes. Start asking yourself, what kind of life do I want to wake up to? Not what life would impress him, but what life would actually light me up from the inside out. Maybe it's time to change your morning routine. Join that class you've been thinking about. Travel somewhere that challenges you. Take better care of your body, not because you want to post a revenge glow-up, but because movement, health and vitality are expressions of self-respect. When you take care of your body, your energy shifts. When you take care of your surroundings, your focus sharpens. And when you begin investing in experiences that nourish you, new people, new skills, new places, your whole life begins to evolve. This evolution is not about erasing what you had with him. It's about expanding beyond it. He may have been a beautiful chapter, but he's not the whole book. And when you start living like that, like your story is still unfolding in exciting, unpredictable, and fulfilling ways, people feel that energy. They notice. Because most people walk around clinging to old stories, stuck in nostalgia. But when someone sees you living forward, curious, creative, open, it's magnetic. It speaks to something deeper than just attraction. It speaks to growth. When you're actively upgrading your life, your vibe changes. You walk into a room differently. You speak with more clarity. You smile without needing a reason. You stop looking backwards so much, because there's too much beauty in the road ahead. And that energy, it's contagious. That's what draws people in. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you're finally expressing yourself, your real, evolving, empowered self. So instead of replaying conversations in your head, or waiting for closure that may never come, pour that energy into making your life richer, fuller, more you. Think about the kind of woman you want to be 5 years from now. What would her home look like? What would her calendar look like? What would her social circle feel like? Start aligning your life with her. Because when you do, you won't just re-attract someone who once saw your light. You'll attract someone who is ready for the woman you've become. When a relationship starts to fizzle out or lose its spark, one of the most common reasons is that emotional mystery fades. In the beginning, everything feels exciting. There's curiosity, unpredictability, and discovery. You didn't share everything all at once, and he didn't know exactly how you felt at every moment. That unknown created tension, the good kind. It kept him leaning in. But over time, when the emotional dynamic becomes predictable, it also becomes less stimulating. Emotional transparency is beautiful, but when it turns into emotional availability without boundaries, it can kill attraction. That's where re-establishing emotional mystery becomes essential. It's not about manipulation or playing games. It's about restoring the space between you that invites desire to grow again. Mystery isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being intentional with your presence. If you're always accessible, always texting back immediately, always explaining yourself, always sharing your every thought and feeling the moment it arises, there's no tension left. There's nothing to wonder about. No reason for him to lean forward emotionally or mentally. But when you pull your energy back, not in punishment, but in peace, you create space. And in that space, curiosity can begin to reawaken. He starts to wonder what you're thinking, what you're doing, who you're becoming. That's the kind of curiosity that fuels attraction. You stop being someone he can fully predict, and start becoming someone he has to rediscover. Re-establishing emotional mystery means you resist the urge to overshare, just to keep a connection alive. Sometimes we mistake vulnerability for emotional dumping. We pour out everything, our fears, our doubts, our hopes, our pain, in hopes that it will bring someone closer. But it often has the opposite effect. It overwhelms. True emotional connection isn't about constant access to your inner world. It's about earned access. He should want to know more because you've given just enough to intrigue, not so much that there's nothing left to uncover. This mystery also comes from how you respond. Think about how you show up in conversation. If he sends a vague message and you respond with a 5-paragraph essay explaining your feelings, it sends a signal. You're desperate to be understood, to keep things going, to stay connected. But when you respond with calm confidence, short, light, maybe even with a touch of playfulness, it flips the dynamic. He starts asking himself, what's going on with her? That questioning is powerful. It pulls him out of his comfort zone and into a place of pursuit. You can also reintroduce mystery by changing your rhythms. If you always reply at a certain time, change it up. If you always say yes to plans, take a rain check and do something solo that fills your cup. Let your life become less centered around his timing and more centered around your momentum. When he sees that you're not orbiting around him, it forces a re-evaluation. He can no longer assume your attention is guaranteed, and that subtle shift in energy can reignite interest. There's also a kind of emotional mystery that comes from your energy. When you stop broadcasting your feelings and instead focus on becoming emotionally grounded, It creates an aura of strength. You become more composed, more self-contained, more enigmatic. You don't react emotionally to every text or gesture. You don't try to force conversations or get reassurance. That stillness is compelling. It's the energy of someone who isn't looking to be completed, but who is complete on her own. And that's rare. That's what makes someone stop and take notice again. The beauty of emotional mystery is that it makes someone earn their way back in. It's no longer about proving your worth or getting his attention. It's about giving less and letting him do the work to re-enter your emotional space. You're not withholding as a tactic. You're preserving your peace. You're allowing someone to experience what it feels like when you stop overgiving. And in that silence, in that space, in that subtle detachment, he begins to feel something he hasn't in a while: desire. Not because you chased it, not because you begged for it, but because you became just out of reach again. And nothing is more attractive than the person who doesn't need to be pursued, but still pulls you in. Strategic communication isn't about being manipulative or calculating every word. It's about communicating with clarity, intention, and confidence. It's the difference between texting because you're anxious and need a response, versus sending a message that reflects self-respect and self-control. When you're trying to re-attract someone without chasing, how you communicate can either pull him in or push him further away. Most people over-communicate when they're afraid of losing a connection. They text too often, explain too much, respond too quickly, or ask too many questions trying to keep the dialogue alive. But real attraction doesn't come from filling the silence. It comes from what you say, and how you say it when you do choose to engage. Think about how you typically show up in conversations when you're feeling emotionally off balance. You might send long, emotionally charged messages trying to fix things, hoping he'll respond with reassurance or clarity. But when communication becomes about seeking validation, it loses its power. He feels the energy behind it, and even if your words are kind or thoughtful, the underlying tone is neediness, and that repels. Strategic communication, on the other hand, is rooted in confidence. It's not reactive, it's intentional. It says, I'm in control of my energy. I know my worth. I'm not afraid to be silent if I need to be. When you do reach out, keep it light, playful, or intriguing. Share something that reflects your vibrant life, a fun moment, an inside joke, a memory that sparks curiosity. These messages aren't about asking for attention, they're about reminding him of the spark. Let the communication be a subtle invitation rather than a loud plea. You don't have to make grand declarations. Sometimes the most powerful message is the simple one that says, "Hey, I'm good, I'm living. And I thought of something that made me smile." That kind of energy is hard to ignore. It feels natural, not forced. And most importantly, it makes him feel good, not pressured. The way you manage timing also matters. You don't have to reply instantly. In fact, when you take your time to respond, not out of spite, but because you're genuinely engaged in your own life, it shows that your world doesn't revolve around him. That space you give creates a dynamic where he starts leaning in more. He starts paying attention. The unpredictability makes him wonder. When communication is predictable, it becomes background noise. But when it's strategic, it becomes a highlight. It stands out. And that's what reignites interest. Also, avoid the trap of over-explaining. You don't need to justify your boundaries or decisions with paragraphs of context. A simple "can't do that today. Hope you have a great one" is stronger than a full emotional breakdown, explaining why you're unavailable. When your words carry calm certainty, they signal emotional maturity. That's attractive. It shows that you're not trying to win anyone over. You're just being yourself, on your terms. It's also important to know when not to communicate. Silence can be more powerful than a perfectly worded message. If he's gone cold, pulling back, or giving mixed signals, resist the urge to keep checking in, or trying to clarify where you stand. That energy often leads to chasing, and chasing kills mystery. When you stay quiet during those moments, and allow him to feel your absence, it forces him to confront the space you used to fill. Strategic silence gives him room to feel what life is like, without your attention on him, every second. And if there's still attraction there, that space will speak louder than words ever could. What's most important is that your communication reflects your growth. You're not reaching out from a place of fear. You're connecting from a place of strength. You're not waiting for validation. You're offering glimpses into your life that show how full it already is. And that's what draws people in. People are drawn to those who don't need to be chosen to feel enough. They're drawn to those who express themselves freely but don't overextend. That balance of presence and space, expression and restraint, is what strategic communication is all about. It's not about saying more, it's about saying the right thing, in the right tone, at the right time, and knowing that sometimes, the most powerful message is the one you never send at all. Setting boundaries that command respect is one of the most powerful things you can do to re-attract someone without chasing. It shifts the entire energy dynamic between you and him, because suddenly you're no longer the one trying to win him back. You're the one deciding what you allow in your life. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about inviting in the right kind of behavior and filtering out what doesn't serve you. When you start showing up with self-respect, everything changes. The way you speak, the way you respond, the way you hold space for yourself, those things communicate louder than words ever could. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think it will scare someone off. But here's the truth. The person who's right for you won't be pushed away by your standards. They'll be drawn to them. The moment you stop accepting crumbs and start expecting the full meal is the moment people realize they can't get by with the bare minimum anymore. And those who aren't willing to meet your standards will naturally fall away. That's not loss, that's alignment. Setting boundaries weeds out what isn't meant for you and creates space for a deeper, more meaningful connection to grow, whether it's with him or someone else. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they're reflections of what you will and will not allow based on your self-worth. For example, if he disappears for days and then pops back in like nothing happened, and you allow that behavior without addressing it, you're sending a silent message that your time and emotional presence are flexible, negotiable, and not all that valuable. But if you calmly acknowledge the behavior and respond with grace, yet firmness, something like, "I appreciate you reaching out, but I need more consistency than this to feel connected," you immediately change the emotional tone. You're not punishing, you're not begging, you're just being clear. And clarity is confidence. One of the most underestimated aspects of attraction is emotional structure. People feel safe around someone who knows who they are and what they expect. Without structure, there's confusion, and confusion leads to mixed signals, anxiety, and disconnection. When you set boundaries, you're creating that structure. You're saying, "This is how I live. This is what I expect. And this is how I protect my peace." That strength is magnetic because so few people truly embody it. Most people bend, over-explain, or tolerate too much just to maintain a connection. But the one who doesn't compromise on her core values, she stands out, she becomes rare. Holding a boundary also means being okay with the discomfort that may come with it. You might fear that if you say no, if you don't reply right away, if you ask for more, he'll pull away. And maybe he will. But if someone pulls away because you asked for emotional respect, what exactly are you losing? Boundaries are filters, not walls. They don't block love, they filter out dysfunction. They don't create distance, they create clarity. And clarity leads to deeper connection when both people are operating with emotional maturity. The energy behind your boundaries is just as important as the boundary itself. If you're setting boundaries out of fear, anger, or insecurity, they'll come across as defensive or reactive. But when you set boundaries from a calm, grounded place, they radiate power. You're not trying to control anyone. You're simply choosing how you allow yourself to be treated. That tone, steady, unbothered and clear, is what commands respect. Because people don't respect rules they feel were made in panic. They respect standards that are backed by self-assuredness. When you start living your boundaries consistently, not just declaring them, but actually honoring them, you build an unshakable sense of self. And in that state, you stop chasing, you stop proving, you stop managing his reactions. You become a woman who doesn't just ask for respect, she expects it, because she gives it to herself first. That's when people start leaning in. That's when he starts paying attention in a different way. Not because you made a dramatic speech, or cut him off with ultimatums, but because your energy now says, I know what I'm worth, and I'm not afraid to protect it. At the heart of re-attracting someone without chasing is a deep return to self. It's not about tactics or games. It's about stepping back into your power. When you shift your focus from him to yourself, upgrade your lifestyle, re-establish emotional mystery, use communication intentionally, and set boundaries that command respect, you stop seeking approval and start radiating self-worth. That shift changes everything. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you're choosing you. And ironically, it's in that grounded, fulfilled, magnetic version of you that he often feels the pull again. Not because you begged or proved yourself, but because you became someone he has to earn. Attraction isn't about constant proximity. It's about space, growth, and energy. When you invest in your own expansion, you naturally become irresistible. Whether he comes back or not becomes secondary, because the woman you've become isn't waiting, she's evolving. And that evolution will always attract what's aligned. You're not chasing love anymore. You are the love. And from that place, the right connection can't help but find its way back to you.